With the confidence of having 10 max-level spellcasters by his side, he made his plans for the next stage. Up until now he had only hidden inside his basement, or rather Mordenkainen's magnificent mansion. Before he tried venturing into other planes of existence, well, dangerous ones at least, he wanted to create a foothold on Earth. A network of teleportation circles, underground hideouts, or even a few towers around the globe. The good thing about circles was that they had a 100% success rate. If he used the normal teleportation spell, he would be fucked. He just knew it. No amount of contemplation had yet told him on how the rolling of dice worked here. Things just happened. Cast a spell with a ranging damage output like Fireball, and the effect varied in intensity depending on pure luck, it seemed. So he would be damned if he risked becoming stuck inside a mountain, just to avoid a few days of weeks of effort in traveling. Teleport accidents were really no joke. If he wanted to travel to Tokyo, for example, a place which he only had seen videos from, he'd have a 43% chance of a mishap. Which would mean getting stuck in said mountain. Or the bottom of the ocean. And even the 57% only meant he would arrive on the same continent, probably. Only a 25% chance guaranteed landing somewhere inside the city. He could just transform into a bird and fly there, but that would take ages, and be quite dangerous. If you died while polymorphed, you just turned back. Yet any extending damage would go to you. Say, you were sucked inside an airplane engine. Not pretty. Etherealness was also not an option. A great way to get yourself killed by stepping on some ghost's lawn. Still worth the risk if you were, say stuck under a mountain and needed a convenient way to just walk through it. He came up with a much better idea, after only a week of drawing mind maps inside his new meeting room. Very nice, that one, had everything. Automatic coffee maker, which meant it also flew your coffee to you. A rolling sushi to keep the host entertained and at full strength. And a marvelous, fake, view of Central Park in New York. Just to get the business mindset really going. There were also dozens of giant whiteboards and pinboards for creative idea-finding processes. His Yakuza were not that helpful, honestly. It was just like bouncing ideas of yourself. After much deliberation they finally concluded that a simple plan with only Argentarius participating would be the most likely to succeed. 3 days later, after he had switched places with Tom for a while to spend some time with his family and friends, he went to LCY, in disguise of course. This had been another topic of great importance they had tried to figure out. What persona should Argentarius go for? The young, handsome and wealthy conglomerate heir? Astute and well-traveled gentleman in his 40s? Or the classic old wise man with a white beard and pointy hat? The irony of the arch-wizard disguising himself as Dumbledore or Gandalf did not elude those present at the meeting. How does the saying go? If you want to hide something, just put a funny hat on it or something. So after a rather expensive visit at the tailor, yes, they still had those, he now really looked the part. A long and loose-fitting coat lay on his shoulders, almost resembling a cloak. Shiny leather boots with a metal buckle at the side adorned his feet. Underneath he wore a vest and a loose shirt. Everything from his tie to his underpants was made of the finest materials, at least that was what the very eager salesman told him. He paid £3,000 for just the one suit. Why only one? Well, he could just cast a cleaning spell. He had only just managed to not use suggestion to lower the price a bit. He had not been sure if the target would have known about the magic afterwards or not. Better to be safe. The best thing he now owned was his new wizard hat. He even tried to store a bottle of Johnny Walker in the tip, but this intricate piece of dimensional magic still eluded him. By a twin, how do they do it? Maybe I can someday visit the Invisible Academy and ask them. Well, I'd rather not think of the implications of the Discworld existing. Hopefully the Warcraft world is not real, thank you very much. I have no hope in dealing with fucking world-devouring titans. And man, ripe in years, wandered in the London City airport and looked a bit lost as he viewed the panels all round. Yet, as this was London, no one cared. Only a few kids poked their already stressed parent and asked them if the man with the funny hat could do tricks. Argentarius had even hoped that somebody would ask him to show them a magic trick. He had actually practiced some. Real magic, of course. But he had to make it so convincing that the viewer would be sure it had to be a fake. Not very easy. After wandering around and annoying half a dozen employees, Argentarius finally settled on a flight, where some seats were still vacant, and disappeared into a toilet. He pulled his sleeves up and checked his new spellbook. It was a shiny, golden bangle about 12 inches in width. Grabbing on one side, he drew a long scroll of parchment out. So much better than carrying around a damn book everywhere. The book and his new amulet, ring and earring, were all granted by his supporting and loving batteries. He now had a spell foci on every extremity. You never knew when one might be confiscated or chopped off. He spoke aloud after making sure no one was hearing him, gaseous form. Soon he turned into an unassuming trail of smoke. Now he had 1 hour to board the plane and hide on the toilet. It was surprisingly easy to find a nice seat in business class. He just walked up to an empty seat and sat down. No one cared for your ID or tickets after you boarded. Argentarius sadly looked at his spells, the mind tricks and illusions he had prepared. After a few mediocre meals, a nap and some light spell studying, they landed in Zurich. He disembarked the plane gracefully as a wisp of smoke, and after getting a piece of the airport, he made his way to the next plane. There had been no time to get out and search for a place to build a hideout, but if he teleported with the piece of the yucca tree he snapped of, in the next 6 months, there would be no problem getting here. He would have to think of making himself invisible first, as to not scare the nice lady inside the duty-free store. After repeating the procedure, he was on his way towards Tokyo. After being poked awake by an increasingly panicking Japanese stewardess, Argentarius moved discreetly towards the next toilet and turned into mist. He cast the 3rd-level divination spell Tongues on himself and proceeded to regret this dissension, as he now understood all the random chit-chat around him and could no longer define it as anime background noise. He made way towards a back alley in Yokohama near Chinatown. After hiding behind an illusionary wall, he cast Demiplane and hoped to have picked the right one. Someday he would release unseen horrors unto this world after drunkenly opening the wrong one. He just knew it. Lucky for him and probably Earth, what came out were his Yakuza. From Ichi to Jew all were present. Okay guys, just as practiced. The first 4 of you guard around me, the rest stay back and observe. If anything major happens, let the reserve back home know and they will teleport in, hopefully. Argentarius wrinkled his nose as he thought of the accident at training last week. He thought about having some of his guys use true polymorph to turn into monks, assassins, and the like, to get a real party together. Yet he threw the idea out because of the limited time. He barely understood his own class and had little desire to train a team of diverse party members for months, or years before he could use them in combat or social encounters. There was also the fact that the things he knew to polymorph into were giant-ass monsters, demons, or devils. Not that optimal for stealth. Anyway, he was here today to have some fun and scout the area for suitable places for his little project. Now the streets opened before him like he was using some crowd control stuff. Nobody, especially the Japanese, would dare to block the path of important-looking men in black suits. Double so if they guarded a strange old man, as he was most likely a Yakuza boss. They wandered into Chinatown, and after Ni had cast another Tongues on him, he straight up dived into the stalls, shops and bars. His goons were soon loaded with souvenirs. He had not yet dared to create a bag of holding with Wish. Even the book and rings had been a very nerve-wracking situation. The rules stated clearly that Wish could, in fact, create any non-magical object. But magic was also on the table if you did not value your life and or sanity. 2 of his dear constructs had straight up exploded while another had disappeared, and the last one was still looked up under supervision to find out which curse the DM thought up. He had checked his new items with every possible spell he knew, which were not that many. Even divination was performed extensively, yet the only thing that came up was that he foresaw a coming headache. Had not happened yet, so best of luck to him. After a few hours of miling with the locals, he was just drinking happily and cheating with a cute female bartender, as 6 men pushed the door open and tried to look as intimidating as possible. Soon after, their boss entered. He wore the same white suit as them, yet he was almost 6 feet tall, which must have been quite the achievement on his parents' behalf. His eye patch and the still-lit cigar gave him the necessary aura to get Argentarius' attention, even in his drunk state. Argentarius turned around and rose slowly from his seat. "Who are you, foreigner? You are in our territory." Argentarius was gravely disappointed, as what reached his ears was perfectly translated and accent-free English. "My friend, will you not share a glass with me? I only wish to have a good time." He held his breath and prayed to Azuth, or whoever rolled his dice. The man seemed to be taken aback, but then he gave a shorthand sign and the action was on. One of the white suits took a quick step forward and tried to punch Itchy. He just stepped aside and pulled his foldable quarterstaff out, then proceeded to miss. The goons were soon embroiled in a full-on bar fight, the wizard constructs being the Yakuza's equal in most aspects, for they could not use magic and had never tried physical training a day in their life. Still, they were level 20 creatures and could take quite the beating. The bosses both just stared into each other's eyes to see which one would fold first. Argentarius smiled and looked at the hand which had one missing finger. Then he looked back up, said with a serious face, "Why do Yakuza swear a loyalty oath?" "Because they can't do pinky promises." First he just looked stunned, then he suddenly fell on floor in fits of laughter. Argentarius had used the spell Tasha's hideous laughter, it latest a minute and should teach the man a good lesson. After the white suits scurried away, dragging their still giggling boss behind, the arch-wizard looked at his goons and was not amused to see they had taken about half a dozen hits. That would cost quite the sum of GP to repair. He decided to change his guard into a more diverse group in the future. Some fighters in leather armor, a few assassins and priest or a cleric. He himself was just as bad as his constructs in melee. Without any magic item and not being able to cast shield or mage armor, he was only a punching bag. Magic robes and defensive items were the most important, he had no idea how to make them. Before he figured that out, he better try to get to another magic world and just buy them, saving years of effort. One thing he did create himself was his transmuter stone. It was similar to the Philosopher's Stone in Harry Potter. Only that he could create it in 8 hours and the effects were much better. It was a consumable item that had a passive effect while not yet consumed. He chose to increase his own speed by 33%. For his goons he decided on different things from dark vision to fire resistance. The consumable function was the real stuff of legends and the main reason he chose the school of transmuting. It could cure all disease, gift youth, transmute objects and also resurrect the dead. Resurrection was, as a matter of fact, necromancy. Yet not only did necromancer use this spell but also clerics and priests. It was seen as a tool and not evil itself. The soul had to be willing to come back and a body had, mostly, needed to be present. Also it was no undead which arose, but the real thing. Well, you could also just make skeletons and zombies, of course. I'm sure they will not notice, right Itchy? The construct just shrugged. Oh well, we are going to try this sweet spell out anyway. I've read the description many times, we should be fine. He pointed at 2 of his goons. Kyu and Ju. You guys will play the we are here on government business and are just doing our job card, okay? Just use suggestion or some minor illusion spells. He and his Yakuza had all changed faces and outfits. They now had vests with the kanji for Tokyo Metropolitan Government Bureau of Waterworks on their backs, and were climbing in small boats, or more accurate, rafts. Mirage Arcane was the spell he intended to cast. It was, in his opinion, one of the best crowd control spells in the game. At 7th level and with a duration of 10 days, it took only 10 minutes to cast. No gems or gold required. The wording was a bit vague, and there had been many debates online about the level it could reach. It could alter an entire square mile into some sort of terrain that you would like, including sight, smell, sound and touch. You can create anything within, and it is physical and real. Only creatures were impossible to create. The point of contention was that the spell was an illusion. For now the only thing that mattered to him was that it could hide and create structures. He decided to build his first wizard tower in Sayama Lake. The world's largest city seemed to be the perfect place. Sayama Lake was directly next to Tokyo and had a nice view of Mount Fuji. It was also a water reservoir, almost a mile across, and right next to Waseda University. This would come in handy later. For now he planned to stay hidden and build an underwater base that would serve as the foundation for his gigantic mage tower. He first needed to get some more minions and contingency plans in case the world did not react to kind towards the wizard declaring himself guardian of the mortal world. He intended to fully pay every country in gold for the land he would build his towers on. That is to say, later on when they could no longer refuse. Can Wall of Force stop a nuke? That was the real question. It is absolutely impervious to any magic and non-magic damage, even in the ethereal plane, except for disintegrate. The spell deleted the very atoms the object was made of. A nuke was just heat, pressure, and radiation, right? The boat started to sway as Argentarius stood up. I got it, guys. They did not turn their heads and instead continued to paddle. We will make a false flag operation. I mean, we are taking their cities hostage in a way, so they would not nuke us, right? Fuck, these new hypersonic rockets exist. A small warhead on that one could for sure take out my tower. Argentarius thus decided to approach the whole world domination thing from more of a soft power perspective. If he built temples for his god, Azuth, and let some priests perform miracles, there would for sure be lots of followers to come. He had no idea if the gods of Earth really existed, but he'd rather paint the target on a real god's back. There was also no telling on how the other religions would react to him announcing a new one and magically creating temple after temple, and performing wonders for his god of spells. He would mostly gather followers from the academics and atheists. Or maybe the healing wonders would bring in droves of desperate folk. Anyway, for now he needed to build his base. He had one goon cast Mirage Arcane over the entire lake. Fog started to obscure the vision on them. Ni cast water breathing on all of them and they jumped in. Light was no problem, as they had all changed their transmuter stone towards granting dark vision. Move Earth facilitated the need for shovels. They dug a hole and used transmute rock to make dozens of cubic feet large foundation of rock. On top his constructs cast Galder's tower with wish. Yes, there was a spell to create a wizard tower. Just straight up, with furnished bedrooms, magic fireplaces, libraries, lounges, observatory, magic brazier, and even a sauna. If cast at level 8, it created a 7-story tower that would last 24 hours, or if cast continually over 1 year, be permanent. That's why wish was so useful, it just ignored pesky things like that. Argentarius coordinated the efforts of his constructs via sending spells and hand gestures. The plan had been made beforehand. They would stack many round 7-story towers next and over each other and combine them with shaped stone. It looked a bit rough, but that would be something for his creations to figure out. The teleportation chambers was to be located at the bottom, together with the armory and treasure. Above were the library and a lot of winding corridors with traps and the like. He could barely contain his excitement at the thought of his first, self-created, dungeon. Sea monsters, flying creatures, and many illusions would eventually guard the finished tower. For now he was satisfied with his underwater hideout. A few days later Argentarius walked along the shore of the Sayama Lake and tipped his hat towards a friendly elderly couple talking a walk. He pointed at his vest and emblem, murmured something about government business and proceeded to climb over the fence. The couple looked at each other, shrugged and went on. As soon as they had turned the corner, he dove into the lake and swam towards the center. It made for really good exercise. He dove under the still surface and saw the impressive stone structure. A glimpse of the madness to come was already visible in the twisted and strange way the many towers intertwined. The wonderful thing about magic was, he had not a single care in the world for the structural integrity. Wall of force could be placed anywhere. He could even build a castle in the sky, if he so wished. He kept that in mind for another time. Argentarius swam under a few plants in an outcropping and then upwards through the entrance into a small room. The walls were lined with plants and luminescent moos. He called the room Beaver Chamber. A helpful construct dried him off and asked the living tree if were so kind as to make way for the master.